We've opened up the first student visas. The appointments, they quickly filled up, but we want students who have been admitted to know that in June, July, and August, we will have more appointments, and we will be able to make sure that you have access to the visas that you need. In Hyderabad, we're on track to double the number of officers we had from just a couple years ago to process our visas. So this is a high priority, and we're working with the government of India to say, help us help you, continue to authorize more consular officers. You'll see tonight an amazing consulate with so many windows, but we don't have enough people for those windows yet. Working together with the government of India, we hope to see that. Lastly, you asked about the H1. That's something that Congress has to do, so that's the legislative branch. But certainly we want to make sure that it's done honestly and fairly, always cracking down on where there's fraud and assuring people that this is something that is in the interest of both America and other countries, especially India, the #1 source for H-1B visas.
And we have time for one last question.
This is Divakar from PTI.
I can take both. Do we have time for both, or do we have to go?
We take two at one time.
Okay, why don't I hear them both and then I'll answer them.
Yeah. Hi, this is Naveena from the Daily Pioneer. Just last week, the US State Department has released a report on religious freedom in India. And the MEA in India has rejected it outrightly, saying that it is motivated and biased. So how do you deal with such frank exchanges when you are talking about a partnership and 3 more visits to be in the pipeline?
So I believe in our core that we share the same values. Between Indians and Americans both believe in a sense that all people should belong in our countries and belong in our world. And when it comes to specific cases, obviously I'd refer to the report, I think, where there's countless hours that go into that. But what I will say is that the United States is deeply committed to protecting religious freedom in all countries of the world. It's a key foreign policy priority of ours. And each year, this release of this report is an opportunity to highlight not just what's gone wrong, but as you'll see if you read the report carefully, where there's been good responses to the human nature that unfortunately does often lead to attacks, to unfortunate incidents. So we seek not to have a conversation where we're talking down to people, but to highlight and have a frank conversation, both directions. America, with all due respect, also has these problems too, and we need to solve them together. People who hold these values of belonging need to make sure that human rights, including freedom of religion and belief, and the responsibility of governments to protect that, are alive and well. So we'll have those conversations as friends, we'll have those conversations both privately, and sometimes we have the public pronouncements. But I think the end goal is the same. How do we build cities, how do we build countries and a world of belonging? And the United States stands for that.
And one last quick one from CTI.
This is Divakar from PTI. You spoke about bilateral trade between India and USA. Where do you see the figure going up in the next 5 years? And what are the areas, what are the sectors that would contribute to the growth? And my second question, what are the challenges that India is likely to face during its presidency of G20 this year?
So we're very excited to see G20 here in India. First of all, as an ambassador, it means I get to see every cabinet member come through. We get to see our superstars come through India, and more importantly, take some of India back home with them. You know, I told folks we have such a strong bridge between our countries, but if you take the bridge from India to the United States, it feels like a very strong steel bridge. And when you come from the United States back to India, it's a little bit of a rope bridge that needs to be strengthened, because we don't have enough Americans who come here and understand this remarkable rise of India, of her incredible leadership on the world stage, and the possibilities of where we can act together. We saw this with Secretary Raimondo, our Secretary of Commerce's visit here, where she won hearts and minds, but also deepened the work we can do economically. Secretary Austin, who's come before our Defense Secretary, looking at how startups and companies here are co-producing, and for the long term can be able to really embed our defense systems and our industrial base together. So I love the word that India has talked about for its leadership in G20, bridge. Bridge between the past and the future, a bridge between North and South, a bridge between East and West. Now G20 is a place where we also will speak our truths, where we have to point out the moral moment of an unprovoked invasion of Russia in Ukraine. But that doesn't mean it's the only thing we will talk about. We want to make sure that where most of the world comes together and sees that as a clear moral moment that we have to stand up, that borders matter and that sovereignty is sacred, something I know that India and Indians understand. We too have to look at everything from health and global health, not just ending tuberculosis here in India, but globally. The work that we can do on HIV and AIDS together, the work we can do to prepare for the next pandemic, the way we can look at the amazing UBI system here and look at democratizing payments, the technology that's coming out of India, not just the back office, but the front office, preparing IP, conservation, biodiversity, women's empowerment, those themes that I'm talking